So now we're going to start with the second page, the P&L. So the first two rows are actually provided by the BD framework. That's the volume, that's the revenue. Per unit is just the price that was given. Same thing here. Now you'll notice it says percentage of NSR. For the first row, under the tab revenue, everything on this row here, when it says percentage of NSR, that's always going to be 100%. Just a general rule. Now we're going to follow all these rules up here to be able to solve for the missing values covered in white. So starting with 50% of revenue in year one, that means only in year one, the cost of goods sold was about half of what they made revenue-wise. So you just apply 50%. How do you find per unit? You're just going to do your COGS divided by the volume up here, divided by this volume. That will give you the per unit price, and they already told you what the percentage of the revenue is by saying the cost of goods sold is 50% of revenue. So you just put the 50 there. And then it says add-in promo in year one is 17.5% of revenue. So do the same thing, just get 17.5% of the revenue. And then it says year one operation expenses is at 70 pesos per liter. So the 70 goes here now. How do we find the operation expenses? Well, we're going to multiply the per unit price by the total volume, and that will give us the operation expenses. And then we're going to use the operation expenses divided by the net sales revenue to get the percentage of the net sales revenue. You can also do that exact same thing with the A&P if you want to find those other things out. The 17.5 is already given to you up here in the section above. So now we're looking at year two cost of goods sold and operation expenses increased in line with an inflation of 5%. So for cost of goods sold, that inflation applies to the per unit price. So we're going to use a growth percentage of 400 times open parentheses 1 plus 5% or 0.05 close percent, and you'll find that their pricing is now 420 per unit, 420 pesos. And then for operation expenses, that applies to the total, so simply go to the total tab and put 5% there. Then before we close this off, this particular section, percentage of NSR, that's going to be the per unit times the volume. Per unit times the volume total is going to give us the cost of goods sold for year two. Then the cost of goods sold over the revenue is going to give us the percentage of net sales revenue. These are just gross percentages, so I'll assume we did that. Variable cost is where the big assumption is made. Basically, it hopes that it's exactly the same as the cost of goods sold. And then the gross profit is basically our revenue minus the COGS. It's about half for the first time, but not always. Here are the figures that back it up. And then for the add-in promo of the where is it? Here. For the add-in promo of year two, it increased by 20%. So we just need to indicate that. We also have to put in total, it grew by 20%. And we also have to reveal these numbers based on, what we had available. Operation expenses should be increased. No. Operation expenses, already increased with the 5%. So to find out the total for year two, we're going to apply the growth percentage of 5% to the 106 million it gets its value. Again, look for per unit and percentage of NSR the same way. Clear the competition at the bottom, because basically all it is just adding. You're adding your ad-in promo and your operation expenses, and it gets you your fixed cost. So with a fixed cost, you're going to want to add that to the cost of goods sold, because those are your total costs. And then with those total costs, we are going to determine the net profit by subtracting it from the revenue. Okay. And that should be it for the most part.